I think we're going to have the lights come up in a second, but my name's Scott Feinberg. I'm with the Hollywood Reporter. Thank you for coming out and staying with us tonight, and it's well worth your time because we are so lucky to have the writer-director, Fran Kranz, and also, of course, the wonderful actress, Ann Dowd. So please join me in welcoming them.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
So, I'm just trying to see my notes. It's a little dark here, but
That could change, couldn't it?
I think so.
What a crowd. This is the biggest,
Beautiful.
biggest crowd
This is
I've
great,
seen.
Yes,
Yeah.
the biggest by
Thank you
far.
so much.
And I know,
Honestly.
I know this is a movie that, you guys are gonna want to digest as well. But let's get into it a little bit up here. Fran, you have up till now made your name as an actor, and I wonder if there was always a desire to write and direct, or if it was specifically because this story crossed your radar.
Yeah, no, I've always dreamed about it. Basically, as long as I can remember, sort of a dream or goal of mine to, make movies. And I had ideas. They never were really written to completion, or I had an idea, and no one really knew what to do with it. And the catalyst, really, I'd always been thinking about forgiveness, going back to sort of when I first learned about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa in college. And I was really moved by the stories, but really also disturbed because I did not think I was capable of that. I didn't think I could participate in this sort of this idea of restorative justice, this idea of just making the effort to heal and forgive as opposed to finding punishment or getting punishment and retribution. And it's something that kind of was always on my mind, and I wanted to do something with it. I wanted to write about it, but I didn't know, I didn't have an entry point. And I was a new parent at the time of the Parkland shooting, and I was so overwhelmed that day. Obviously, these things, these events, these tragic things that happen in our country. Well, there we go. I was always horrified, but this was different. It was very different, and I think it was because I was a parent, and I just started researching. I didn't realize I was off. Sorry. Oh my God.
Hello.
Anyway, yeah, I didn't say anything important yet.
No, I think we could hear.
I started researching these shootings. Just as a person, just as a parent, just as someone that just was so horrified and confused and angry and didn't understand what was happening and why it just kept happening. And then I came across these meetings, these small, intimate, private meetings, and there weren't a lot of details, but I thought, my God, what do they do? How do you do that? What could you possibly say? And so I made this connection to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and thought that's it. I want to write about that. I couldn't think of anything or a conversation more compelling, and so I started to write this screenplay.
Well, as the son of a South African, I think it's really smart and great that you picked up on that. I don't know why to this day, as far as I know, there hasn't really been a narrative, non-documentary depiction of that, and this is kind of a microcosm of that. And also just to talk about how slow this process is of getting any kind of justice or getting any kind of peace. Just today, the Parkland killer finally pled guilty. I mean, that's how slow. That was years ago when you first started that, right?
Yeah, February 14th, 2018, and Ann and I were texting about it today. Look, I have this getting off topic, but it's always on my mind. I never experienced anything like this I don't know anyone that's been involved in a mass shooting or school shooting. So on the front of my mind has always been really kind of concern and a little insecurity about what are the real victims and real survivors going to think if they see this movie. And it was in my place to talk about it. And I'm certainly not trying to say, oh, you should forgive. You know, this isn't what I think. It's just my own. It was my own kind of personal exploration into this, because I did not think I was capable when I was, 19 or 20, learning about the TRC, watching these amnesty hearings in South Africa. I thought, I don't think I could do that. And I had to think about it again in these events. And, I thought of those parents and those families and survivors today, watching him speak today. It's sort of a personal, I guess, kind of meditation on these ideas of healing and forgiveness and really working through pain, I guess.
And I promise I'm coming to you in a second.
No
but
worries,
I got one
honey.
more to. It's interesting because you've written in such a kind of I guess economic in the best sense way. You've got 4 characters, essentially one main room, and it's a lot of dialogue between these characters. And I wonder, for that reason, was there ever contemplation of doing this on the stage? And if not, and either way, why was film the right medium?
Yeah, the first drafts were screenplays. I did switch to a stage play, probably in the summer of 2018. That's the stage play version. Ultimately, I went back. My heart was really set on making a movie. I had a couple people in my corner saying, I think this is a movie. And you need to be right here. You need to be close up, and you need to catch the internal moments, the private moments, the moments between couples. But its time as a stage play was valuable because, I did table reads with actors, and I wanted to know, what do you think is wrong? Where are things missing? So that the dialogue really improved, when the focus was just on performance, and 4 people on a stage. And then it went to the next level. I mean, I think the greatest improvement in the screenplay and the script was finally getting these 4 and having we had a 2.5 day rehearsal. Yeah.
Oh, that's so lovely. Thank you.
I want her to talk. But we had this 2.5 day rehearsal in New York, and I tried to just say, look, just tell me, where are the problems? It's like work through this, and wherever, as actors, there's a lot of actors in here. There's those moments where you're just not totally engaged. You're just sort of saying the lines because they're there. Finding any moment that might have felt false, or where you're potentially just kind of moving through it because you have to. We have to focus on that and scrutinize it and figure it out and keep you locked in and keep you engaged and keep you active through this, because we'll never reach these sort of emotional heights if all the steps aren't really there. So it was really about listening to their instincts. Great actors have great instincts, and I had 4 actors that are as good as it gets.
Well, then, all right, that's perfect. Teeing it up to come to Ann Dowd, who has been one of the best for decades. I mean, you can just hop through in your memory Philadelphia to Compliance to The Handmaid's Tale for her Emmy-winning performance there. And I just wonder, how did this project first cross your radar? And what was your gut reaction? I could see, obviously, it's a brilliant screenplay. But I could also imagine that for an actor, it would seem like a daunting thing to sign up for, to be in that headspace for, without a huge budget. You're going to have to do this in a short period of time, which can be, I'm sure, a grind.
Do you mind if I say something that
You
we
say
were
whatever
talking
you
about
want.
before?
Yeah.
I was thinking of the shooter, the young shooter in Parkland. I don't know if you, in your day, were able to see it or anything. I didn't see anything. I just read it. It was very clear that he's not ready to speak about it, because the things he was saying to the families were just, no, honey, no, don't say those things. Just such a profound lack of awareness of what he had done. I know that sounds terribly judgmental, but he's not well, the kid. You know what I mean? And reminded me of the vulnerability of these kids in these circumstances. And just listening to him today, I thought, I hope someone's going to help that kid in prison come to some level of, I don't even know what. But it was just very, very sad to read that stuff. Yes. Back to make-believe. No disrespect intended there. Well, the script, yes, indeed, beautiful. And so the two thoughts simultaneous were, I could never turn this down, so yes, yes. And secondly, a very strong thought of, can I live in this level of grief with the respect and authenticity that the script deserves, this woman, these characters deserve, and the people in this world whose lives have been shattered. Because, I mean, there is a responsibility in every role. You want to just give, you know what I mean? You want to do it as truthfully as possible. This had an added responsibility because of, and I was very taken with Linda. I wanted very much to know her. I was very moved by what I read. And so I've been doing it for a minute or two. So I'm accustomed to the fear one has in the beginning. You say, okay, hon, we're gonna move forward here. So I was thrilled and scared to death.
And I know that a lot of work went on, which I'm going to ask you about in a moment, once the core five were all together. But before that happened, it's from my understanding there was some reading that you did that was helpful to just, there aren't too many people who are in the situation, who have been in the situation that Linda finds herself in, who have spoken publicly about that or written about it. You found something that was helpful?
Well, it was Fran. This was actually after we came together, actually.
Okay.
And Fran had a very long list, and all of which he had read, of course. And I read Sue Klebold's book about Columbine, the mother. She's the mother of the shooter. And the feeling was, I need a friend. I mean, that sounds peculiar. Of course, by that I mean someone who knows Linda's life and unimaginable that she lived through it, but that's what I read. I didn't dwell on it. The script was strong enough, but it was shocking to see. She did not see it coming, and just all of these things.
Did you know any of the other three actors in the grieving actors prior to this?
I did not know them. I knew of them,
Yeah.
had great respect for them. We met for 2.5 days for rehearsal in New York City. What we did is work through the text. Jump in anytime, darling. And to just to make sure we were very clear on what we were doing. If there were any things that needed adjusting, Fran is extremely collaborative. There were very few things, but he was always open. And the most important thing that happened in the room was a very strong relationship with trust among the four of us. I was, not to overshare, as they say, I was very worried about my youngest boy. He was our adopted son, and he had a very tough childhood, early childhood. And now he was 14 suddenly, and I thought, I've never been a mother. I'm the mother of 2 older children than Trust. And so I just was immediately talking to these wonderful people. And what was clear was just their kindness and their goodness and the feeling of intimacy with them and knowing we could do this together. And a feeling of safety, that we would hold each other. And this one, of course, always there. So it was wonderful. They're like, they're family to me now, for sure, the way that is.
All both great actors of stage and screen, which I think maybe more than others might equip them to do a lot of dialogue in a short amount of time, right, Fran?
Yeah, I mean, I never imagined I'd get actors like these, like the four of them. and no disrespect to New York theater actors, I just thought I was going to get, try and get favors from my friends that I had met doing theater in New York, and not the sort of, this star and incredible person like this. But they were always what was important was that sort of stage experience in my mind, because I always felt, look, I want it to be this uninterrupted conversation. We're celebrating the fact that people can do this, that this happens, that people get in a room across a table from a person they feel blame and hate towards, and they work through those feelings towards reconciliation. And that happens. There are examples of it, and that's what this movie is about. So to compromise it with score or flashbacks or inserts would be to undermine the whole subject of the film. And so it was very important that we try and isolate these 4 actors as much as possible and let them perform like a stage play, even if it's on film. And so that rehearsal was critical. I had a first AD that I didn't want to be in the room. I said, you call action, you call cut. Let's treat it like a love scene. We tried to remove any inessential person. We tried to, I didn't like last looks. I didn't want, touching up, I didn't want that. I wanted to leave them alone, right? And we had our camera set up. We had a whole system, 2 cameras on a dolly, kind of moving around them, and we had these, 15, 20-minute takes. So that kind of stage experience, and I think less about stage experience, the idea that I needed actors that listened, like that really engaged constantly, because so often in my mind, what was going to be most important was the reaction and the response from one character, what another character is saying, right? I want to hear how Gail feels. What does Gail feel about what she just said, right? Martha about what Linda just said, or Ann. So, knowing and trusting that you could leave these people alone and that they would, own the material was key. And again, I can't say it enough. Recognizing and valuing the talent that I had. I mean, I think, I'm not just saying this. I think they're 4 of the best performances you'll see this year. But I think as a collective, I don't really know a lot like it. What they did together as an ensemble is really, really special. And sort of as soon as I could see that in that, we had a camera. Brian Jackson Healy, my cinematographer, was in the New York rehearsal doing a camera test, and luckily the movie takes place at a table, so we were doing table work and figuring out our shots at the same time. And he sent me a Dropbox link a few days later, and I knew we had it. Watching them even rehearse, I thought, my God, this could be really special. And so just always, really listening to where they felt something was wrong, and trying not to have, pride about it, being really flexible and letting the actors own the material and co-author it in order to sort of make sure they're always locked in.
So let's just talk about the fact that 12 shooting days, right? Only
14.
14.
And 14, but as soon as, Kendra, Michelle Carter, and by the way, Brita Wool and Michelle Carter are here in the audience. Can you guys stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up. It seemed like a good time. When Michelle closed that door, that was 8 days. From that point on, it was about 8 days chronologically working through the scene. It took about a day that night that was getting everyone seated with Kendra and the 4 parents. There was a 14-day shoot. The first 3 days, I think, were just the opening, right? It was Brita, Michelle, Kagan, and I. And then the next week, the 4 parents arrived, and it was intense. There was, 5 or 6, 10, 12-page days. It was Idaho in November, so it wasn't really daylight until about 9 a.m., and it was dark at 5. So it was merciful in that sense. I think they would agree. Yeah, they got lives. They went out to dinner and they rehearsed. But it was very tight, so we had to have a very sort of strict sort of shooting schedule about how we were going to do it. So that preparation was really key.
And Ann, when you're having that short of a period to shoot a lot of material, what was the technique for learning it, and how helpful was it that I guess at least when it's the 4 of them, it was able to be done in sequence? Thank God, right?
Yeah, there was never really any question about that. We
Yeah.
knew we had to do that. Unfortunately, and the last scene that you saw in the basement was basically the first thing you shot. Yeah. So that to me felt. I mean, that was the one thing I knew from that rehearsal how good they were. I mean, I knew how lucky I was to even have them on board. But I saw it. I saw it on film. I saw this is going to work if we pull this off. But I would go home to my hotel room and think, why did I do it this way? Why did I give myself so little time? That was the one thing that really panicked, really, stressed me out.
He didn't show us that stress, important to say.
But so you would go back at the end of each day and have dinner with the other actors, I guess, and then work more?
Yes, we had 3 weeks in between those 2.5 days of rehearsal, and then 3 weeks later we all met again in Idaho. So you know how it is. Each actor has their own way of preparing, of getting ready, and we all know your words. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to be going here for that. You want to stay here. So and again, the thing about being, we all had time in the theater, many years. And what do you learn there? Well, you get your sea legs because you have to. Which is a very good thing. And also, you learn about endurance, and you learn to sit comfortably with uncertainty, because it's all part of it, isn't it? So the wonderful thing about shooting it, and because honestly it was a joy. I mean, it was scary in a way, but all I remember is the profound experience. I wish I could find another way to say it. The generosity of, I will speak for Linda, toward me was extraordinary. I don't know how else to say it. That kind of process, mysterious, isn't it, for all of us? But just knowing at those times when where she would just take over, that's what it felt like. I have this, knowing that I don't know that terrain where she lived. It was remarkable what went on there. And afterwards, hey, thank God for that sun going down, because it was just a beautiful thing. We knew it wasn't, how it is on a set. Hey, well, we didn't quite get it, so why don't we? But we were light dependent. And so when the sun went down, we went down in that very gentle way. And then we would go and laugh and do whatever we would do, and then work through text and fight and get annoyed with each other, and then get through it, and then get ready for the next day. It was really extraordinary.
I want to ask both of you, do you think it makes a difference to have a fellow actor directing you to be an actor knowing what these actors are going through?
I think the most helpful thing being an actor was the rehearsal was valuing them. I love actors. I think they're important, and I think I if they felt something was wrong, that was a sign. This movie's just, it's performance. It's white walls. And I wanted it that way, unadorned. There's no music, all that stuff. It's just about them and the words. And so, I just had to trust them. I mean, I think being an actor on set, personally, maybe I'll get better at this if I make another movie. But for the most part, I think it. Like I said, I wasn't in the room, so I would take that, long walk or whatever into the parish hall where they were shooting, and thinking the whole time, don't say that. You wouldn't want to hear that. Don't say that, and then walking in the room and trying, pretending I had to talk to the cinematographer or something. You know what I mean? So like, I think I was in my head much more as an actor on set. But thankfully, we had done the work. You know what I mean? And they're so good that I wanted to give them a long leash and have kind of a light touch. I think I think valuing, I don't know, I learned a lot from a director at the Public Theater, this guy Richard Nelson, and who gave me this quote from another director, Granville Barker, old English director, that said, let him realize the more that he can ask of the actor, the more he will learn of his play. And it's this beautiful, empowering thought. And so that's how I wanted to approach this, was just listen to them and change it. Just be ready and flexible to change it. I had a lot of sidebar conversations with Jason. Some actors demanded more
Understatement.
with that freedom. But I don't know. I mean, I can think of moments with each of them where, ultimately it felt like, what, they were sort of confused about that moment, and I think they're right. Let's cut it, let's change it. Like, if he wants to say this, let him say it. That kind of thing. That's what helped.
Well, I think it was wonderful that Fran is an actor, because when you're going to go to that place, the understanding of what that means to drop all the armor you got and stay present in that place of grief. He had tremendous sensitivity toward that. I think we've all experienced someone who doesn't get it, and the only impulse you have is to say, please don't speak to me at all. In fact, no need to come in between cuts. Stay where you are. And that was not the case here. And there's tremendous relief in that he would hold us in that space and protect us in that space. So it's fantastic.
Can we take a few from the audience? If you could just let us know if you have a question. Yeah, please just say your name and your question.
My name's Frank. Thank you, Fran.
Yes.
Thank you, Ann. Your movie reminded me of an incident in Amish country in 2006. I don't know if you recall it. A man went into an Amish schoolhouse and killed 5 children. And what astounded me is, I don't know the exact facts, but sometime shortly after, some of the Amish went to the shooter's parents' house and forgave him. And I couldn't conceive of that. And you were saying how you would struggle with that. How could I possibly forgive like they did? And I'm wondering what you think, and what you think, what does it take? I thought maybe, was it the faith of the Amish that allowed them to do that? What does it take for someone to forgive like that? What is it? What do you think?
Well, what I learned in the process of shooting this film is that there is always a way through. If we can put down the defenses, the rage, the blame, and just step in for a little bit to the life of another, remarkable things happen. Now, I think it's significant. I don't know how those incredible Amish parents did it, because I think the 6-year period of time was very important for these 4 people. It just takes time, Some are able. Fran and I had the privilege of meeting a mother who lost her little girl at Sandy Hook, 6-year-old girl. I don't have words. And this woman had found her way to forgiveness. She relied on her faith, she said, her willingness to grieve and to not hide. And she was very open that her marriage did not survive. And she said, because you cannot choose not to grieve. And it's very clear in the subtle way Fran wrote it that Linda and Richard did not make it. And it's clear to me why, and always was. I don't know if that speaks to the point.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that. I knew in Charleston, a lot of that community forgave what was Dylan Roof almost immediately. Some of those family members, and that's obviously the heavy faith, and being in a church. Look, Desmond Tutu in South Africa was a huge inspiration, and he wrote this. He had this in his book, No Future Without Forgiveness. He said, forgiveness, reconciliation, and reparation are not the normal currency of political discourse. They're far more at home in a religious realm. And to me, there was never any question that this had to take place in a spiritual setting. I'm not religious, I'm not practicing Christian or Catholic. I was raised going to church, and it sort of faded away in my family. But I I like the experience of it. I do. As I get older, I like the experience, the sort of tradition or ritual or the sense of community. I like a good sermon, but I certainly am not religious, and this is not a Christian film. But I believed it had to be in a spiritual setting because I think that pursuit of forgiveness, that pursuit of reconciliation, and just the action of this movie, that these four characters are trying to make sense of the insensible and to explain something unimaginable, is to me is spiritual. You know, and these coming face to face with these significant questions about life and death and grief and loss. To me, it felt like it has to be somewhere in a house of worship, and this just sort of was what I was comfortable with. And if I was Jewish, maybe it'd be in a temple, or so on and so on. You know what I mean? But what did you, in the Amish Quaker, I read about a meeting that took place in a Quaker house, right? But it couldn't. I did not think it would work the same way in a private home or a community center. And these characters are doing, human work. They're in the parish hall. It's sort of secular business. But the spirituality is sort of around the corner if you choose to have a relationship with it. And that's kind of what's happening to Jason Isaacs at the end of the film. This is this guy who's sat on this volcano of anger, that he's still very much at war with grief, and he sort of plays it off or thinks he's channeled it through politics and science and understanding it, but something is missing in his grieving process. And I think it's some sort of openness to the unknown and openness to things that we can't necessarily name or ever fully understand.
And
Sorry.
No, it's also great that I think an upside of doing it in a place of worship is that we get those scenes at the bookend scenes where you can actually let a little air, have a little bit of a reprieve, and you're so great in those scenes, and just have a little humor. And
Yes.
yeah. So
I mean, I would love to get audience, but I'd love to talk about the opening too. But yeah.
I think we have time for two more. So let's go right here, please. Your name and the question.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. This is an amazing film, and this is amazing for you, Fran. This is your first one, yeah?
Yeah.
And Anna, I love you.
Thank you so much, honey. Thank you.
What struck me about this was the placement of Linda's story after the forgiveness has taken place and in front of witnesses. And did that change or affect Anne, the way that you approached it? Now that because you weren't in that, the room is isolating, yes, but it's also safe in a way. And did it affect your performance of that, or how you approached that monologue and that piece? And then I have a question for Fran about directing tactics in a one-room moment.
Excuse me. I think, sorry. I think Linda, at the end of every sentence she says, is, "I'm sorry." She just carries that. And the truth that she loves her boy. I raised a murderer. I love my son. The world you think may have been better off without him, I would not have been. And the desire to tell a story, to tell that. I don't know, I didn't overthink it. I knew there was something there. Maybe she didn't even know what it was, but that she came back. And you know how you learn, when you start acting, let's say, age is underrated. I've said that before. You think, well, how do I possibly play a scene that it takes place after the things we haven't shot? Well, then you realize, no, don't. She'll find your way for you. Just let's see where she takes this. It was all